Hello and welcome to the SEO plus AI show. My name is Josh. Google leaks are BS. Bashinsky. I am joined by my co-host George. Say hi there, George.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing great. For those folks, today we're doing the update on the big Google leak. There was a huge Google leak put out by Rand Fishkin. Who's that? He used to be an SEO a long time ago. We'll talk about who Rand Fishkin is and what his thoughts are on this giant, huge Google leak that has happened, and why we should or should not trust him. We'll get to that in a second. And also by Mike King, who has been in the SEO industry almost as long as I have. He runs big, huge agency stuff, and he's kind of a programmer dude, and so he's well liked in the industry. And he also put out a giant paper on this giant, huge Google leak. I have the Google leak here as well. We can take a look at it and give our own insights. So that's what we're talking about today. This is the SEO plus AI show. If you've never seen the show before, we are the best SEO show, period. By the way, also, we include AI in the show because you can't do SEO effectively unless you're utilizing AI. AI is the new pen. This was the state of the art, and now AI is the state of the art. And so if you're not using the state of the art tools, you're going to be left behind. And so we'll show you how to use AI effectively and safely in your SEO on the show. So this is the live version. We do it Tuesdays at 11 a.m. Make sure you click the monkey or smack the bell or, I don't know, whatever you need to do, bleep the bleep, to make sure you're getting notifications when we're going live. And why do you want to be here live? Because you can ask any SEO questions you want, and we will give you answers. We are experts I have about 30 years SEO experience. With George, we probably have close to 50 years SEO experience, both global and local. We will answer your SEO questions and help you as best you can. You can't find a better deal than that. Also, you can ask any questions below the description in the comments, and we'll gladly help you there as well. And on Fridays at 10 a.m., you could watch the produced version there as well if you want a little bit more of a condensed version. So, there's been a giant, huge Google leak. Here is the lowdown, folks. Apparently, people who are vaguely related to Google, perhaps an employee, perhaps not, this is up in the air, accidentally shared what should have been a private Google repo on GitHub public. So they have a bunch of public stuff on their repo on GitHub. That's the cool lingo for repository. What's a repository? It's a file storage. It's a bunch of files that you can do versioning on, and you can do pipeline, CI/CD stuff on, which is the fancy lingo of saying you have a consolidated source of your source code. You can fix it. You can get version branches of it. You can pull them down into the active server or a staging server, and you can push them back up and things like that. That's what GitHub is for. Effectively, I'm sure I missed about 10 different things it does, and I'm sure I may have explained part of it wrong, but I'm not a programmer. I'm an SEO, so that's what I know about is SEO, at least for this. And I also was doing an academic degree in psychology and philosophy. Philosophy and SEO is the only two things, and martial arts, I have 3 black belts. Martial arts, philosophy, and SEO is the only 3 things I claim to know intimately and know everything about, or very close to everything about. Everything else, I'm a dilettante, okay? So when it comes to programming, I don't know. But anyway, apparently somebody associated with Google noticed that this private repo was made public and downloaded it, and it's an API documentation, and apparently, and in the API documentation, that can be used by any Google team at Alphabet. So, I mean, the idea is that these are general APIs, like other APIs they've already released, and that SEO University has already analyzed and found most of the ranking factors out of by single variable testing them, which is the only way to know that there are actual ranking factors here. So let me remind everybody, let me get to that again. The only possible way of knowing if any of this API stuff, the API request stuff that's leaked in this documentation, which was API documentation, if they are actual ranking factors, is if you single variable test them. That is, and what is a single variable test? A single variable test was made more popular in about 8 years ago now or so by Kyle Roof, who started a group that was single variable testing. I was part of that, the general group of single variable testing. And then we all went our own ways because we all had philosophical differences as to how the testing should be conducted. And so I made my own group that's called Underground SEO University. George has been a member since the very beginning. He's a senior student there now. And we single variable test the ranking factors. That means we isolate all other factors. We isolate all other factors, or as many as possible, and usually all of them, quite frankly. So we can have an apples to apples comparison test to know whether X or Y or Z, now you know I'm Canadian, X or Y or Z is actually a ranking factor. And the only way of knowing this For the absolute most certain you can be in SEO, which is not 100% certain, never 100% certain, science itself is never 100% certain. You only get 100% certainty in math and logic, or that is to say, zero-sum closed informational paradigms. When you have a zero-sum closed informational paradigm, in that paradigm and only in that paradigm can you have 100% knowledge. Like in chess, the knight moves in an L structure. That is 100% certainly true. In chess, that has nothing to do with nature. In nature, we have no effing clue, and we can only get to some X% under 100%. And in SEO, that X% is even lower in some ways and higher in some ways. Actually, I think scientists in nature, George, and I don't know if you would agree or not, I think they have a harder time testing the black box of nature because nature is complex. Physics is very complex. The ranking factors that humans have made, only like a few levels of complexity to it, maybe 8, 10 at total, whereas nature can have infinite levels of regress of atomic particles getting smaller and smaller and smaller. I think nature is probably harder to test than single variable test than, quite frankly, SEO is. So we've found a lot through single variable testing. So if you want, here's the blatant sales pitch, 5 seconds. If you want to join SEO University, email me at joshbachynski@gmail.com. If you're already an SEO Copilot customer, I can get you a huge discount. I can get you 50% off, which is $150 back in your pocket to subscribe to my underground SEO University. It is well worth the money. We know ranking factors. I can guarantee you will rank. I will show you the proof. I can show you evidence. I can show you proof that current proof of this month. Hundreds and hundreds of examples, hundreds of them, of us ranking from nowhere to page 1 or nowhere to spot number 1. We can Babe Ruth it like in the old days. We can pick a SERP and say, I'm going to rank there. And then we have nothing ranking there. And then within a few months, we have something ranking there. And it's not that long either. So we already knew from single variable testing what a lot of these leaked ranking factors were. George can attest, in the group I was rolling my eyes and lamenting the fact that, oh great, thanks Rand Fishkin. Thanks Mike King. The painstaking experiments I've been doing for the last 8 years to suss out the ranking factors that we personally knew and we secretly knew and we were secretly taking advantage of, they keep getting leaked by these, Google, you lied to us. Oh, I'm so sad, Google it.
You can always show that meme pic I sent you in the group.
Yes. Tell us a bit more about the meme pic, George. Let's get some context.
Yeah, if you want to describe it, there's a woman who's enjoying a nice shower. She's cooling off from the summer sun.
Oh yes, paint a picture for us, George.
Yes, right. She's just cooling off, right? Yay!
And all the water dripping off her and everything.
Yeah, just beautiful, right? She's a beautiful woman.
I'm going to take this in another direction. So you just keep going, man. Keep going.
I'll keep on going.
Yeah.
Technically, probably going the same direction. Anyway, clip 2, image 2, right below it, you see a man on the different side of a fence, relieving himself, urinating up and over a fence.
Right. Yes.
Yes. Onto what seemingly would be, analogous to the woman. Now that said,
taking a shower.
The subtext is the women taking the shower is white hats, people who think, Google is their friend. That tell them, hey, you only should be doing these things, and when something happens, you're being blessed with Google's good graces. And then on the other side is Google. Google's the one taking the piss all of you. Google's the one who is saying to do all these things and laughing in your face while relieving themselves.
Indeed. And
and case in point,
yes.
Case in point, this leak.
Yes. Yeah. Monkey see, monkey do, monkey pee all over you. To quote the immortal Michael Scott. So, the meme says it all. Guys, Google's not your friend, okay? Yes, Google lies to you. That's John Mueller and Gary Ilyich's job. They don't know all the ranking factors, or Danny Sullivan. They don't know all the ranking factors. I know for a fact, having been told by a Google engineer, that they're not told all the ranking factors. They're only told what they need to be told, and they're told only parts of it. And their job is to make sure we never suss out what the ranking factors are. They do a very, very good job of it. So I've met these guys in person. I've talked with them. Oh yeah, they're so personable. They're so nice. But they're not your friend. They do spin for a living. They do public relations and propaganda for a living, right? That's what they do. They lie for a living. That's their jobs. They collect bugs from users, and then they make sure we never figure out what the ranking factors are. So Rand Fishkin and Mike King are doing a disservice to the entire SEO industry and everyone who actually knew these secrets and kept them secret, because that is the only way to succeed at SEO. The only way to succeed at SEO is to keep the secrets secret. Is it secret? Is it safe? As Gandalf said to Frodo, it must be kept secret and it must be kept safe. This is end stage capitalism. You know what happens in end stage capitalism every single time it's been tried? The rich get crazy and we revolt if we can. That's what happens, and they are not your friends. They are not your friends. Google is Marie Antoinette saying, let them eat cake. And the cake is the bullshit we get to eat from them every single day. They are not your friends. They are not going to feel bad or repent for one little second. Absolutely nothing. Nobody at Google will be hurt, and nothing at Google will have been changed, Rand and Mike, because you leaked this. You've been lying to us. They know. And now they know that we know. And so we don't have any advantage anymore. It's like you're saying, oh, Walmart has terrible practices, and they do. So I'm not going to shop there. And that's your virtue signaling, thinking that makes an effing difference. It doesn't. Walmart's like, fine, whatever, one little person out of the 3 billion who shop at Walmart. We don't give two shits. Same thing about, but you feel great about yourself, of course. Same thing with this. Another thing about this leak is you notice how there's not really any real ranking factors in there? It's an API documentation. And so they were just amazed that Google made Chrome for the sole purpose of getting clicks. We knew that. We've known this for years because we single variable tested it. You don't know how they're using it in ranking, though. We do. You don't know if that's actually current or not. We do. You have to single variable test it. So this APIs, I think George is going to say later on, and I'll let him make a better point of this, that maybe it gives you a start of where to single variable test. But single variable testing is hard. It's not easy to do. I would, quite frankly, join a group who's already done it. Just saying. But with my
well, and to be honest, that was, as you mentioned, what it actually was that was given to us, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was actually leaked. It does give us a starting point, it gives someone a starting point, right? To find out if things are a ranking factor or not, right?
Can Google track it? This is what it tells you.
Can Google track it, right?
Can Google track it? The answer is yes. They could track everything and anything. They partner with the NSA, okay? They can track anything and everything. So you should have assumed this to begin with. You shouldn't need these numbnuts to bring it out to say these things, because now Google's going to change it all. All that is useless now. It is completely useless now. Google's going to go, uh-oh, they figured it out. Like 10%. Okay, the few little things here that's actually still a ranking factor that they could figure out from this, okay, we'll change them. They are 1,000 steps ahead of the Guesseos. You cannot proceed as being a Guesseo. But I'm sorry, George, I am remiss. I cut you off. Please continue, my friend.
No, with all that said, I still think that it puts, groups like ours ahead of the game because we already know what is working. If there was ever a doubt, it is solidified. That, hey, yeah, I saw that. Yeah, we already saw that before. Great. No questions, no questions anymore. But, let's say there's, just for number's sake, there's 100 of them and we've already done 75. We don't have to test 70. We don't have to test the full 100. Just test the other 25 that they pushed out there. Yeah. Right. Like we're already ahead. So much so. And just that no one's going to catch up to us. More or less us trying to catch up to Google, like you said, is who's, already 10 steps ahead anyway. I don't think Google's going to change anything, if I'm going to be honest. I don't think really? Google's going to, I don't, because of that, right? Because what Guesseo out there knows how to do a single variable test from a scientific standpoint, right? Like you walk the street and you say, hey, let's do a single variable test. Like, what are you talking about? It takes quite, just to even get to the idea of.
It's been off the air for too long.
Exactly. It's sort of, and even they messed up.
Yeah.
So I don't think they're going to change a lot if they change anything. And, even inside of that, they mentioned, an algorithm or API, call in there that pretty much, measures like, hey, we're looking at everything, not just one thing.
Oh yeah,
we're looking at everything.
Yeah,
and even with that said,
of everything and everything compounded on everything to get qualifications of, is this an authority or is it not? Is this real or is it not? Is it, how many clicks are they making? Where are they making the clicks? They see it all. It's all a ranking factor, possibly.
Yeah. So they're going to have to the guest CEO or the person coming into this is going to have to both know how to, but even when it comes to implementation, let's say, oh yeah, they find this ranking factor, right? Say let's call it click-through rate, right? It's like, oh yeah, more clicks means more ranking. How many clicks?
Mm-hmm.
In does it depend on the industry? Does it depend on location? Again, how am I going to test all these things? You get the point. We don't deal too heavy, at least within the group with CTR. I love it. I'm a black hat. I love stuff like that.
Oh, he said it.
So
he's a beta. Too bad we need another. It's a Bravo Tango, folks, Bravo Tango.
I'm a not white hat.
Yes.
So anyway, so that said, I enjoy testing those type of things, and I've done it. So I don't think people are going to. I just don't think they're going to really be able to use it. The professional SEOs will be able to use it. But the folks that rely on things like groups, are going to have a really hard time and most likely want to join a group that can understand it.
Yeah, I mean, like a public SEO group is going to be right out to lunch. This will give them a few little hints, and it should clue them into the fact that yes, Google can track all those things. It's not just content and links. Single variable testing is a full-time job. It's been my full-time job for the last 8 years. It's not just, is keyword density a ranking factor, which is what the kind of other groups do. Keyword density is a multifaceted concept to test. You need to strip that out even further. And like, is a character, is ASCII a ranking factor? Because you have to use ASCII or you use Unicode, one or the other. Is that a ranking factor? And you build up from there and single variable test that. Then you build up from there. Is this HTML tag or that HTML tag a ranking factor? And you build up from there. You need to try to disprove yourself as well. Like, can the HTML tags, can I show that there is no pattern? Can I show both there is no pattern and there is a pattern when I do X or when I do Y? Then you know that single variable testing is at least possible in the system. Then you have to move up from there. So it's like testing, will this pill kill the rat? Okay, fine, it did, but why did it kill the rat? And you have to get down to genetics, you have to get down to metabolism, you have to get down to much more fine-grained things. And that's how you do actual single variable testing. So everyone else's single variable testing, quite frankly, is wrong, right? Because they're not doing it right. Because you have an ex-divorce lawyer doing it, or you have someone who ran a link network doing it, or you have some guy who was in the army doing it. No offense to any people who do any of those jobs, but that's not trained as a scientist. That's not trained to how to do these things effectively. And there's huge mistakes. The other problem is there's no peer review in their groups, or very little peer review in their groups. Our group is peer review. I retest, everybody tests. I have over 100 peer review testers. They're my students. I say, do it like this. What happened? Boost. What happened? Boost. What happened? Boost. That's peer review, right? And I have a very close connection with those and Discord working group with those groups. So, I mean, I'm not here to sell SEO University. We're here to talk about the Google League. And George, you're probably completely right. Probably Google will do nothing. Google is already 10 steps ahead of what this leak was. This leak was relevant years ago. They've already, because here's the proof. They talk about Panda and Baby Panda in the leaks, and I have the actual leak here. You can look at it. So here, let me show you what we're talking about here, guys. And so here's what it is. And you see it's API data for anyone who wants to use it at Google, working at Alphabet. And there's modules, it's an API module. So, but you could see some of the things here that they can find in it. Like, can I find Panda in it? I don't know how to search this thing, quite frankly. Can find Panda in it. Yeah, someone needs to make a better repository of this so it can be all searchable and whatnot. But they have a content warehouse. It's 14,000 of them. It's a lot of data here to go through to figure out what's going on. They can figure out different things, and they have access to all the data that they have access to, which is a lot. And it's an API reference. So do you want to make this your full-time job for a month, 8 hours a day reading this and trying to suss out what may or may not be a ranking factor? Again, this is kind of why I'm saying Google Leaks are BS. I mean, single variable testing is the sharp edge of the spear. I don't need to remake the spear. I already got a spear that's very sharp, and I've sharpened it with single variable testing. I don't really need to know all this other crap. There could be other ranking factors. We already get wins day in, day out I've deconstructed enough of the Google ranking code. I don't really need to go and read all this and try to do more testing, but I can. I'm going to try to get this into AI to figure it out here. So this is what I'm going to do here. This is just the API reference with the modules. I'm going to take all this. And as you can see, I'm scrolling down and down and down and down and down. This is how much content is here. There is a ton of API references here that they've built up over the 25 years, the 30 years they've been running here, or however long it's been, 28 years. That's how long I've been doing SEO. It's roughly the same time. I'm still scrolling down and it's not even halfway yet. That's how long this is. So somebody here needs to get this into there. Boom. Now I believe I have the whole thing. Yes. Control C. Now let's go here to ChatGPT. I'm going to paste it all in here. Boom. Can you paste that much in? Next available ID 4. Is that what's at the bottom? Next available ID 4. That's what I have. The above, who knows how well this is going to work. The above is the secret internal API docs for Google. Pick out of the API docs anything that might be a ranking factor I can exploit. This is not going to work. This is way too much data. But let's just see how well the AI does this. This might be too much information. Yes, this was too much TMI, too much information. Okay, so let's go here. Let's go to another one. New chat. Okay, so let's just do the first, I don't know. Let's do this much of it. Go back. The above is part of a secret API documentation for Google search. Go through it and pick out signals that would be the most likely to be ranking factors that I can exploit. Let's see if it can do that much. Okay, so it says analyzing the provided documentation for signals that could be potential ranking factors in Google search algorithms involves identifying attributes related to content quality, relevance, user engagement, and authority. So it's already using, here's the problem with using ChatGPT or any public large language model to try to give you the secrets of the ranking factors. It is already seriously biased in a certain direction of what it thinks the ranking factors are, quite frankly. Here are some of the most likely ranking factors based on the provided information. Original text and context. Google API Content Warehouse anchors anchor text. The original text of an anchor, including capitalization and punctuation. So here, this could be important. Now, is this a ranking factor? Do they pay attention to the original text of an anchor, including capitalization and punctuation? I've actually tested this in the group. I know the answer, and you won't until you test it, right? What about this one? Google API Warehouse anchors anchor text, space delimited anchor words indicating the importance of exact matching text and related context. Space delimited anchor words. Is this a ranking factor? It's in their API. Are they currently using it, or did they do this 20 years ago and it's still in there but nobody uses it anymore? Presumably this is all still, the data is still collected, as Rand admitted. And he said, because he said other ones in there are deprecated, which would lead me to believe anything left is a ranking factor. And he's wrong. It means anything left is still being collected and there for use. It doesn't mean they're using it in the Google search team, but it's there. Okay, what about this? Metadata and formatting. Google API Content Warehouse Model apps, people, OZ, external merged people, person if metadata. Metadata associated with person fields, indicating structured data usage. So this is something, this is one of my bugaboos that I talk about a lot. People say you have to have structured data in your content. It's a huge ranking factor. And the answer is yes, you're right. But you know what that means? It doesn't mean what people think it means. It doesn't mean you got to go and use the structured data item prop equals attributes like price is this, product is this, weight is this, all those entity fields. Google will read them if you use them. It doesn't mean they're a ranking factor. You know what else is structured data? HTML itself is structured data. That's the purpose of HTML. It is a hypertext markup language to tell the structure of a document. That's what it is. And so this is reminding you that Google can extract the metadata with person fields, with all fields actually, quite frankly, indicating a structured data usage in any kind of structured data. But is it a ranking factor? You don't know. You don't know. So again, I'm going to keep going through this because it's interesting and it might give George and I stuff to test, quite frankly. It's really only useful for us, quite frankly, and anyone else who's doing advanced testing. Here's the next one. The type of formatted in the request locale, emphasizing the importance of locale-specific content. So Google API Content Warehouse Model, apps people, merged people, event, info, formatted type. They can tell about the type formatted in the request locale, which is interesting. So let me go down here to the bottom. Give me more info on this context and how to exploit it exactly. So to exploit the importance of locale-specific content in Google search algorithm, we need to understand how Google utilizes localization. Understanding locale-specific content. Formatted type and request locale. This refers to how different types of content, addresses, events, names are formatted according to the local conventions of the user region. For example, dates might be displayed as month, day, year in the United States, but day, month, year in Europe, they are. Similarly, addresses and phone numbers have different formats based on locale. Steps to optimize locale-specific content. Implement hreflang tags. That's a good guess. See, so here it's guessing. It doesn't know. It's like, well, here's what all the white hat guessios say. This may or may not be true. Okay, great. I just didn't know what they meant by locale-specific content. They mean addresses. They mean NAP. They mean name, address, phone number. Okay, great. That's what they mean. So let me search this again and find where we were in the content. Okay, great. Document quality signals. Source type. Type high quality, type medium quality. Indicating the quality of Anchor's source page. So is that important? Is the quality of your backlink page, which they can tell it's high quality, medium quality, low quality. They have many other classifiers for this that Mike King pulled out and Rand Fishkin pulled out. And they pulled out only the tip of the iceberg. They've only had this for a week. You saw how much or little I was able to bring this over and get AI to explain it to me. I presume they used AI to do it because that would make it all faster. But I'm going to keep going through this whole thing. I'm going to do a whole structured series on this because I need to go through it anyway because that's my job of researching this and testing this full time. So, and seeing if there's anything that we can actually test. And I bet you I'll go through all of it and I'll only find 20 things to test, I bet you, out of 14,000 API requests. But now it says indicating the quality of the source's Anchor's source page. So is the quality of the backlink page important? Does it matter? We happen to have tested this. We know this for a fact, whether that is the case or not. Again, need a single variable test it. This here is not going to help anyone alone. This just made someone's full-time job reading these 14,000 different API items. 14,000 specific API requests that can be made for hundreds of thousands of kinds of data that any of which could be a ranking factor now and Google could turn off or change tomorrow. PageRank weight, the weight stored for PageRank calculations. Well, that has been a ranking factor since 1998 after they made the PageRank thing. Is it still? We don't know. User engagement and behavioral signals, interaction and affinity, Google API, model, apps, people, OZ, external, merged people, sort key, affinity. Affinity metrics related to user interactions. Okay, I don't know what that means. What does this mean? How can I exploit it? Give me your certainty on this, 1 out of 10, 1 being not the way it works. 5 being who knows, 50-50 chance it is a ranking factor, and 10 being Matt cuts himself 10 being 100% for sure is still a ranking factor. Affinity metrics related to user interactions. Understanding the concept. Affinity metrics measure the closeness or connection between users and content based on their interactions. This can include factors such as how often a user visits a website, engages with its content, and the depth of their interactions, comments, likes, or shares, all of which they can and do track, by the way. They can see everything, and they do see everything. Guys, do you know what the word everything means? It means everything. They can see it. So this really is what the SEO industry calls visits, repeat visits, content dwell time, they call it, which is not the same as engagement. Engagements means they click things, they move the mouse around. That's not the same as dwell time. Dwell time, you could just go there and sit there and the mouse just does nothing. This is engagement metric, which is different than dwell time. So again, showing how the general SEO industry has no idea what they're talking about, because they'll talk about dwell time and not engagement, and they realize they're two different things, and you're not going to get a single variable test unless you suss that out. And the depth of their interactions, like comments, shares, etc. Exploiting affinity metrics for SEO. Interactive content. Create content that encourages user interaction, quizzes, polls. Community building. Foster a community by engaging with users through comments and forums. Personalized user experience. Use algorithms to suggest content based on user preferences or past interactions. User accounts. Encourage users to create accounts. Regular updates and fresh content. User-centric design. Engagement metrics. Certainty rating, 7 out of 10. Okay, that's not what I wanted. I wanted it on each one, but that's okay. On each factor you present. Okay, so I'm going to copy this into the paste buffer. Then I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to search this to find where I was in the content. There we go. Okay, so next one. Merge people interaction settings. Defines allowed or disallowed interactions reflecting user engagement preferences. Defines allowed or disallowed interactions reflecting user engagement preferences? What? What does that mean? What does that mean? What do you mean there's allowed or disallowed user interactions? I can imagine a whole bunch, but I'm not going to imagine. I'm going to just put this here. The factor. Defines allowed interactions reflecting user engagement preferences. Relates to settings that control how users can interact with a particular entity. And it could be totally guessing this, by the way. This may not be further explained anywhere in the API documentation. However, it says such as a person, profile, or piece of content. Here's a detailed breakdown of what it means, how you might exploit it, and the certainty level of it being a ranking factor. So what it means. Interaction setting defines what types of interactions are permitted or restricted for a user with respect to a given piece of content or profile. This could include things like whether users can comment on, share, or like the content, whether users can send messages or friend requests to a profile, restrictions on visibility of certain interactions based on user preferences or privacy settings. How to exploit it. Encourage positive interactions, optimize for user experience, monitor and adapt. Certainty level of it being a ranking factor. 7 out of 10, and user engagement is likely considered a positive signal for content quality, but it's one of many factors. User experience, ease of interaction. A positive user experience can reduce bounce rates and increase time on site, which are known to be important metrics. It guesses 8 out of 10. Freshness of content, regularly updated content, including user-generated content, can help keep your site relevant and timely. Certainty, 9 out of 10. Okay, well, this thing could be off by 5 points, but if you're going to trust the AI as to how much it thinks is a ranking factor based on all the other rumors it's heard, this is a compilation of rumor. More rumors, but does more rumor equal more truth? We happen to know for a fact whether everything that's mentioned here is a ranking factor or not because we've tested them, but I don't think this is what this means. I don't know if this is what the permission, the interaction settings means. I think what this is looking at, is this not looking at whether the page allows these types of interactions and therefore gives it a certain score poor rank associated with it? If so, same question. How to exploit? How sure are you? What is all the things they could do here? If so, same question. What are all the things they could do here? How to exploit? How sure are you? Would it make sense for Google to use it? Is it secretly a great factor no one might have thought of to tell them page A is relevant for query B as per signal C? The AI says, given the specific mention of interaction settings, it's plausible that Google could evaluate whether a page allows certain types of user interactions and use this as a signal to inform its ranking algorithm. Let's break down this potential scenario, what it could mean, and how to exploit it. Understanding the factor. Interaction settings. These settings likely refer to whether user interactions such as commenting, liking, sharing, or other forms of engagement are enabled or restricted on a web page. How Google might use this as a ranking factor. Google could potentially use it for user engagement. Pages that allow and facilitate high user engagement might be considered more valuable. I don't know about that. Content quality. Pages that encourage user interaction might indicate higher quality or more relevant content, or they could indicate spammy content because a bunch of spam things have comments on them and shit comments. User experience. Allowing user interactions could be seen as enhancing the user experience, which is an important factor for SEO. Really? Is that true, AI? Again, you really have to pay attention to the potential biases here. George, what do you think?
It's because there's an AI outside of it. Like you said, it could be guessing itself without this having like all of the data inside of it, which we know it doesn't, and arguably wouldn't, even if we were able to like literally upload the whole API into it, still wouldn't have everything. You still have to take it with a grain of salt, and you still have to test it.
Yeah, this is true. I mean, that's the bottom line, guys. You have to test it on your own. You have to quit your job and spend 8 hours a day testing SEO like I did. Possible interactions to consider. Comments, likes, shares, reviews, messaging, user-generated content. How to exploit this. Enable user interactions, encourage engagement, optimize, monitor, and adapt. Certainty considerations. Certainty. 6 out of 10. While direct evidence that Google uses interaction settings as a ranking factor is limited, it's reasonable to assume that engagement metrics influenced by these settings, such as time on site, bounce rate, and social signals, are considered. Plausibility. Given Google's focus on user experience and engagement, it makes sense that they might indirectly use these settings to gauge content quality and relevance. Secretly powerful factor. Encouraging and facilitating user interactions could indeed be a subtly powerful factor. It might not be widely acknowledged as a direct ranking factor, but contributes to many known factors such as user engagement and content freshness. So it's only 6 out of 10 sure, meaning that it's leaning on the side, 50-50 is who knows, flip a coin. It's only on 1 point higher than that. And actually, as it turns out, I am around the same. We've done testing on a lot of these things here, but whether or not you need to have positive comments on your pages, I definitely tell my students, and I've said this in public before, so this is not secret. I've definitely told students and people in public before, I wouldn't allow comments, period. But if I did, I'd make damn sure they're all positive. So likes, reactions, definitely. Reviews, ratings, definitely. We've tested as well, so we know there's ranking factors. So there are ranking factors in here, for sure. For sure, there are ranking factors in here. So let's go back then to this part. So we're at 5 of 14,000. Content restrictions and evaluations. Now, there's more. It didn't do all of them. It skipped through a bunch. Content restrictions and evaluations. Abuse IAM content restriction. Interesting. Restrictions and evaluations related to content such as geo and age gating. Age gating?
Age? Well, I mean, if we assume age gating has anything to do with quote unquote adult content.
Yes. Okay. So let's go down here. Edit this one. Give only weight to the verified Google leaks and known ranking factors. Okay, this refers to restrictions and evaluations applied to content based on geographical and age-related criteria. Geo-gating restricts content visibility based on the user's location, so it makes a geographic gate, while age gating restricts access based on the user's age. Geo-gating, ensure that your content complies with local laws and regulations to avoid being restricted in specific regions. Provide localized versions. Age gating, make sure your content is not suitable for age groups, is properly labeled and restricted. Certainty, 6 out of 10. Rationale. While content restrictions like geo and age gating are crucial for legal compliance and user experience, their direct impact on ranking is less clear. However, ensuring compliance can prevent penalties or indirectly affecting SEO. So we happen to know for a fact whether this is a ranking factor and how it is. Explanation. Evaluations are used to determine the quality and compliance of content with Google's guidelines. This can include assessments for spam, abuse, or adherence to community standards. How to exploit. Quality assessments focus on producing high-quality original content that adheres to Google's content guidelines. This involves avoiding spammy tactics and ensuring that content is valuable to users. Example, regularly review and update content to maintain high quality and relevance. What does that even mean? Compliance, ensure your content does not violate any of Google's policies on spam, abuse, or misinformation. See, here's the problem. What is the spam or abuse policies? These are vague. These are vague policies, right? Yeah, it's certain that these are ranking factors, and I am too. Just, again, this doesn't really help you. This is why Google leaks are BS. This doesn't really help you because this is just telling you what to say what they did before, right? It's not really giving, this part is not really giving you any good information. Okay, let's go back to where this is.
So yeah, this is sort of back again to where it's like, what is this going to change?
Mm-hmm.
It might, well, it should make most SEOs and most white hats understand that, I mean, I don't want to say it like this, but they need us.
Yeah. Well, you need to do testing. I mean, whether yeah.
I was going to say, while we're going through this, right? We're going through this sort of line by line.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we're telling ourselves, this is going to take a little bit more than just, a couple of minutes to decipher exactly what they meant.
This is a full-time job.
So yeah, if you're not already in the mindset, which we are, but if you're not already in the mindset to dig in like this, which is why I've always been surprised, how many, like there's other SEO groups, right? There's other SEO shows, and there's hundreds of people are watching these shows, and but they're not saying anything. They're not doing anything.
No, and you know why that
I guarantee you, they're not looking at this, and if they are, they're saying,
they're just going to literally, they're going to go through what Mike King and Rand Fishkin said and go, okay, well that's all of it, guys. 30-second fix. There you go. Like everyone wants the Homer Simpson solution, right?
Yes.
And again, I'm dating myself with a Simpsons reference, but everyone wants, like Homer Simpson puts the burrito in the microwave, needs to warm up for 4 seconds. He's like, come on, why does it take so long? And hey, I'm not blaming anybody. I would love it to be shorter too. Everyone would love the burrito in 2 seconds as opposed to 4 seconds. So I get it. And everybody is stressed. Everybody is upset. Everybody has too little time and not enough time for the too little time. So they're like, can't it just be that this just tells me one clear thing to do and I do it? And the answer is, I'm sorry, no. And so for the people, it's 14,000 API documentation. It needs to be going through line by line and then single variable test at each one. So that's 14,000 weeks. Takes about a week to do a single variable test. So do the math. So all these other shows that are like, yeah, well, it's a huge leak, blah, blah, blah. And then you get people watching. Then they say, oh, yeah, well, it's just what Mike King and Rand Fishkin said. It's a 30-minute fix. Don't worry. SEO really hasn't changed. And everyone's like, oh, phew, good. I don't have to pay attention to it, right? I'm going to say, sorry, resist the urge to do that. Resist the urge to be like, oh, phew, I don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about it, but you do have to account for it, right? And just because some guy, I'm showing you what it takes to go through it here. I've used AI to strip out 99% of those API things, which it could be missing huge things that I missed, right? But there's no way to go through 14,000 pages effectively. And that's the only way to do it. And you have to single variable test it. Luckily, I've done the reverse idea. We just noticed by having long experience in SEO what the ranking factors looked like they were. We tested them and we found out. We've rejected dozens and dozens of ranking factors and found many, many dozen ranking factors, probably over 100 to date, of individual little ranking factors, to which you see there are many individual little tiny ranking factors. Like, is your image like this, or is it like this, or do you have this in the HTML or this in the HTML? Tiny little things are ranking factors, and they have tons and tons and tons. So again, John Mueller was lying to you when he said there was only 200 or so. One, he said that like 10 years ago and has never repeated it. Two, he was lying. He was lying. There's more than that, right? There's 14,000 possible ranking factors here. And that's not even necessarily all of them, because the search engineering team is under no obligation to put all of their secret APIs for every other company under Alphabet to use. Why would they do that? It's leaking the information that could be leaked like this. It's Spycraft 101. You do not leak the secret nuclear codes to everyone in the White House, right? You restrict the information of who's going to get it. John Mueller and Gary Illyes and Danny Sullivan and Andrei Lopatsev and everybody else working for Google who does public relations cannot accidentally spill the ranking factors if they don't know what they are. So these 14,000 API requests aren't even all of them, and probably aren't even the most important ones that the engineering team keeps close to their vest and chest, and they don't tell anybody. And I know that for a fact because I've had conversations with Google engineers who were trying to dissuade me from doing SEO, so they're probably telling the truth in that regard.
I would even argue, let's pretend that these are all of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's still 14,000, right? Like, we're not going to go through those in time before they change it. Again, I don't think their plan has changed.
No, and oh yeah, that's what I mentioned. I couldn't find Panda in there to prove to you, but Mike King or Rand Fishkin, one or the other, found Panda in there. It's talking about Panda. However, Google has officially said that the search algorithms no longer use Panda, and now it's called Coty. They renamed it. So who's lying? Is the API documentation lying, or is it just out of date? It's out of date, probably out of date, right? It's everything they've built of the whole time Google's been alive, for all of the companies at Google, because even back before Google was Alphabet, they've admitted this, that each company, Google Analytics, Google Search Console, Google Search, Google Ads, different companies, and they ran it that way on purpose so that one wouldn't pollute the other. And you have to go through all the lawyering to get information from one or the other, which Gary Illyes said, it would be a huge pain in the ass to do that, so we don't use it, right? And now Alphabet is the whole new company, and these are separate companies inside a parent company. So this is probably not all the ranking factors, probably not the important ones. It's probably out of date. It is. So who's lying? The people who said that Panda is now called Coty, why would they lie about that? There's absolutely no benefit to them in spinning that public relations, because this is 10 years before this leaked. So they're probably not lying with the Coty thing, and anyone who thinks they're still using Panda in the API is probably wrong. And now you need to make the judgment, are they using it, are they not? You never know unless you single variable test. Again, we can keep going through this thing line by line, but quite frankly, and AI can limit a lot of it to be like, I don't think that's a ranking factor. It could very well be wrong. You saw how biased it is. It is so hopelessly biased in this case to what the Gessios and the big white hats say, user experience is a ranking factor. What does that mean? Eat is a ranking factor. Did you see the word eat there anywhere? What does that mean? And even Mike King and Rand Fishkin lament that this thing really didn't talk about eat at all. It didn't talk about experience, expertise, authority, or trust. Didn't talk about any of those things. That was a quality rater smokescreen metaphor that they came up with to kind of help white hats, because people beg them on a regular basis. They're like, okay, we want to help people make quality content. And the only reason they care is not to keep people happy, not to make our lives better. They don't care about making our lives better. In fact, they want to make our lives worse. They want SEOs to die and fail, so we all have to buy Google ads. That is verbatim in the antitrust lawsuit. It was released. That's exactly what they want to do. So they don't want to help us in any way, shape, or form. What instead they want to do is they want to make us buy ads. So they obfuscate everything. There's just a giant smoke screen obfuscating everything. So I don't know. I'm going to go to comments. I'm going to go to questions. What questions you guys have? Is there anything specific you want me to search for the last 5 minutes? So maybe you think it's a ranking factor. Do you call it what Google calls it? Google calls things weird things in here, right? So anyway, let me go to see here. I'll share the screen so George can see it as well. Brett says, oh yeah, I remember those Quora and SIA days. Yeah. Those were the guys. South Charlotte Services is excellent. You are absolutely right. Surrounded by knuckleheads. Love it, brother. Is keep preaching. I'm glad you agree. Doran says, the saying is, don't piss on me and call it rain. Boy Hassan says, but what we had to do. Yeah, in some cases, you don't have any other choices. In some cases, Leaf Green Garden says, it would be fun to ask the AI to compare the Google leak to Yandex leak to find what is in both. Yeah, you could ask it that. You could ask it that for sure. Again, there's a lot of data there.
Yeah, you still have to get all the data from both of those in one spot.
I guarantee you that no AI will be able to accept that much information. There might be one out there, Perplexity maybe can accept that much information. 14,000 API requests is, I don't know how much data that is, like how many tokens it is, but you only have a 128,000 token window. Divide that by 3, so that's only like 40,000 words. It's like 40,000 words or so. That document was probably more than 40,000 words. You'd have to make a very complex AI scanning system with memory and attention, and those haven't been perfected quite yet. And even if you did, the AI is going to make huge biased decisions as to what a ranking factor is and what it's not. And so basically all you're going to get is your preconceived notions reinforced. That's all you're going to get, right? You're going to get the preconceived notions of the SEOs out there who've put out millions and millions of SEO pages saying this is what a ranking factor is, which 80% are totally wrong based on our testing. And you're just going to get that reinforced to you as the AI looks through it. And it's like, I don't know what a ranking factor is. So you would have to do a deep dive like I'm doing line by line and ask it, are you sure? What about this? What about that? And it would come up with different things. At the end of the day, it's going to give you a huge guess. And then you would just get ideas for single variable testing, and you would have to go single variable test it to know if it's a ranking factor.
Got to test it.
Yeah. So, I mean, the only way of doing AI these days is to join a group that does proper testing that already has proven results. Email me at joshpaczynski@gmail.com if you want me to show you the proof. Don't believe a word I'm saying. Don't believe a word anyone in SEO is saying. Don't believe a word anyone in SEO is saying. Ask for the proof. Ask for the evidence. I will show you the proof and I will show you the evidence that we know the ranking factors. And here's the endless results that we get month after month of page 1 and number 1 rankings. I can show them again and again and again and again. I'm not going to do it now. I do it too much. I'm going to say Google leaks are BS, or at least this one is, because there's no way that it's not actionable. There's no way to physically go through it. Google has tens of thousands of employees and has AI to produce things even faster than our AI can analyze it. Relying on leaks is not the way to do SEO. This is not the holy grail that I think people are going to think it is. And Mike King and Rand Fishkin, they did out a couple things that are very close to ranking factors that they just happened to happen upon, but they missed about 100 other things. So, you got to do your own testing. You got to go for the evidence. You got to look at it. You got to use AI to build things and work intelligently, because there's too much. There's too much to go through. There's too much to go through, and there's too much to look at, quite frankly. George, do you have any final things you want to say while I look at the comments and the questions?
Just that, single variable testing is one of the most helpful things to find out, if something's worth looking at, right? And then you sort of get beyond that, which is in the field testing, which is, an actual, whether it's a test site that has more than just the one single variable, or even a client site if you dare.
Yes. Doing SEO testing on a client site is always ballsy for sure. But quite frankly, if you don't know what the ranking factors are, every single change you make to your client sites is a test, right? If you don't have single variable experimental knowledge of what the ranking factors are and proven peer-reviewed, dozens of peer-reviewed tests proving that is indeed a factor and it indeed boosts in these conditions and it doesn't boost in these conditions, you need to do it this way and do it that way, et cetera, and all the fine grained detail, the less you have that, the more you're risking your entire business and you're risking your clients' businesses. And every single move you make, philosophically speaking, theoretically speaking, is a test. The less you know, the more you're just testing, right? And you're using your client sites for testing. And they might not be happy to know that's the case. They may not realize how little SEOs know. And we single variable tested, and I still say I know like maybe 60% of the algorithm, if that, because we get results 60, 70% of the time, right? That's the amount of my students who stay in the group. That's the amount of pages we get indexed in SEO Copilot. So I put our rating at 60 to 70%. And again, that's me being honest, an honest scientist. That's what you get here is an honest scientist saying, and we have a fails channel as well, talking about all the ways this didn't work. Oops, blah, 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 blah. And a real scientist has to have that too. Because that's how science works, is this worked this way, this didn't work this way, oops, and then blah, blah, blah. Hope you didn't do it on a client site or your production site, blah, 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 blah. But quite frankly, talking about this Google leak, I think that Google leaks are BS in general, this one especially, just because, not because there isn't probably hidden gems of ranking factors in there. I guarantee to you there are hidden gems of ranking factors in there. But because tactically, there's no way to tactically monopolize upon those ranking factors. There's no way to find them. There's no way to suss them out. There's no way to test them in time before Google changes them, right? Just can't do it. You cannot compete with a multi-billion-dollar company that way. You have to take a different approach. So you have to join a group that's already been doing it. And Google has anti-testing algorithms too. And Google has anti-SEO algorithms too, that are trying to throw us off and throw me off specifically, literally me specifically throw me off the way I do my testing. Because I do it differently than everybody else. And they found it. They're like, I'm going to start screwing with Josh's results. And so I had to adapt and change 2 or 3 times. They do that, right? So you don't want to play chess with Google if you don't need to. Trust me. See these gray hairs? You don't want to play chess with Google if you don't have to. Trust me. Is this leak interesting? Yes. Does Google lie to us? Of course they do. Should you be surprised? No. Did Mike King or Rand Fishkin do anyone a service by pointing this out? No. F you guys for thinking that Google is going to make any change at all from this. The only change they're going to make is to hurt us, to hurt SEOs more. You've done absolutely nothing. In fact, you've hurt people instead. That's what I'm going to say. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. George, do you have any final comments?
I would just reiterate, you're already behind.
Yeah, it's already too late to try to SVT the search results in some ways, because Google already has all the ways that I used to do it, and all the ways that Kyle Roof does it, and all the ways that SIA, Clint Butler has taken that over, I believe, or Chris Palmer has taken that over. All the ways they do testing. No, that's not true. Not all the ways they do testing. Many of the ways they do this, their file structure format, they've taken over. Statistical data correlative analysis can tell you some things if you have a big enough sample base, but you need to know how to read that. And it's not just, this tag seems to be a boosting factor, so if you tune it, it will be there. That's not how that works, right? As you can see in the 14,000 API requests, it's the entity information they extract from the HTML. So just because you replicate their HTML doesn't mean you're going to have the same entities extracted. It's a catalyst. The HTML is a catalyst where you might need a few other things in there to do something, right? And you never know if all people on the top 10 made a mistake. If you don't know if the move vectors to rankings or vectors to D rankings, the top 8 people on the SERP could have made a mistake and they're ranking there in spite of their mistakes. That's why you can't rely on data correlative analysis unless you do it very specifically in very, very specific ways. Suffice to say, the science is very, very hard, very, very difficult, and it's my full-time job to do it. And it needs to be your full-time job to do it. You can't, it's very hard to do things on the side with this as well. All right, guys. So, that's more of a rant from me. That's the rant of all rants. So I'd like to thank George for chiming in. I'd like to thank everybody else. If you need help with your SEO, if you have any questions, by all means, email me at joshbachynski@gmail.com, and I will gladly help you out with any SEO questions. So thanks, guys, for listening. Thanks for watching. And some Google leaks might give you a bit of a clue, but quite frankly, use AI, use the proper testing, and you will get ranking boosts. And that's the name of the game. You don't need to waste your time going through 14,000 API requests to see maybe one is a ranking factor, maybe they're not. Let us dorks do something like that or something close to that and save yourself some time.